Good morning, everyone. It's nice to see so many familiar and some new faces this morning. Welcome to the second session of our eighth annual Aphasia Awareness Conference, hosted by Just Ask. This year's conference theme is Taboo Topics. Let's talk about it. And before we dive in, we're going to play a quick message from one of our sponsors.
June is Aphasia Awareness Month, a time to help educate the public about aphasia, a communication disorder. The Rhode Island Department of Health congratulates Just Ask on its 8th annual conference and commends its ongoing efforts to raise awareness, provide education, and support individuals affected by aphasia and traumatic brain injury across Rhode Island. We recognize Denise Lowell and her team, survivors, families, clinicians, and advocates for their dedication to this cause. Congratulations on this important event and on your continued leadership to support our community. Thank you.
I am really excited about this session today. This was a topic you all picked on our survey, and we found a great speaker to share this information with us. Grab your coffee, get ready, and get comfortable. We're ready to have a great session. I'm going to pass it off to Kate, who is a board member and a really good advocate for those with aphasia. And I'm glad she's on our board. Here you go, Kate.
Thanks, Denise. That's so sweet. Today we are talking about rekindling intimacy with aphasia. Our guest speaker for this morning is Dr. Laura Wolford. She is a clinical researcher at the MGH Institute of Health Professions, whose work examines the intersection of aphasia and sexual health. Very important stuff. Her research investigates how communication impairments after brain injury impact romantic intimacy and sexual well-being for both survivors and their partners. Dr. Wolford focuses on developing clinical frameworks that help speech-language pathologists integrate sexual health into standard rehabilitation practices. We're really excited to have Dr. Laura Wolford here with us this morning. I'm going to go over a few logistics before I hand it over to her and we can get started. As some of you may know who attended our session last week, we do record each session so that if you want to go back and review some of the content or you weren't able to attend live, you don't have to miss out. You can still go back and do so. Today, because this is a really fun topic, but can get very personal and intimate as the theme, I want to be clear that we will be recording this session, and throughout today's session, we will be doing some kind of like breakout questions during the presentation. So Dr. Laura might pose a discussion question that will be open to all of us who are in attendance. This portion will be recorded, but people's voices will be altered and their faces will be blurred. If you are at all uncomfortable with having your face blurred out or your voice altered and being a part of the recording, you can let us know by telling us ahead of time, and we will completely cut your part out. Or you can put your question or comments in the chat and wait until the end for us to read them out loud and pose the question during the question and answer section at the end of the session today. The question and answer portion will not be recorded at all. So again, there'll be discussion questions throughout the presentation. Everyone will be blurred and their voices will be changed and any names will be blurted out. But if you want to participate during that section and do not want to be part of the recording, just let us know very clearly ahead of time before you start speaking. Otherwise, all other comments and questions can be put in the chat and we will address them during the Q&A session, which will not be recorded.
The
Okay.
reason we're saying a lot of this, because I want you to feel really comfortable and ask some of these questions. Because on the survey, these were the questions that people said, I want to ask this question, but I don't want to ask it in front of my care partner, or the care partner said, I don't want to ask that. But this is real life, and we're all in this, and it's not uncommon that we feel that way. And you're not alone. We all have the same thoughts, and we want to talk about it. So I want you to be really comfortable about talking about it, because this is what you asked, and this is what we have the opportunity to do this. And I'm really thankful that Laura is presenting today. And she's very professional about this and makes you so comfortable. So please enjoy and participate.
Well said. Thank you, Denise. My last note, if there are any professionals in attendance that would like to count this as professional development hours, there will be a certificate of completion that is put into the chat at the very end of the Q&A session today. You're welcome to download that and keep that for like independent tracking. Um, and I think that is it. Other than that, I am going to hand it over to Laura.
Hello, folks. It's lovely to see you all. Thank you so much for inviting me into this space. I was not able to come last week, and didn't know about this conference even last year, so I am brand new. But I'm hoping to get to be part of more of these sessions as they go on. Today, we're going to be talking about relationships and intimacy with aphasia. As folks were already saying, especially Kate, throughout, I'm going to have we'll have some opportunities to chat. And then at the very end, we'll also have more time for questions. But I think I'm okay at Zoom. So if you have questions, if you have things you want to say, things that any of this just makes you think of, please don't hesitate. Pop it in the chat. If you want to raise your Zoom hand, um, I this can be a dialogue. We can talk together. I start getting nervous when I feel like I've heard my own voice too much. So, we're talking about intimacy today. First, you need to know about me a little bit so that you feel like you can trust me, maybe, or know what to trust me about and what not to trust me about. So, things about me. I'm a professor at a university with a very long name up in Boston, MGH Institute of Health Professions. I am a speech therapist and a certified sex educator. So I did a lot of schooling to become a certified sex educator in addition to being a speech therapist. And as those two things, I have a private practice called the Spice Institute, where this is all I do. We address communication disorders and their effects on relationships, intimacy, sexuality, and other kind of this is my life sort of things. And I'm a researcher. So my research is about how aphasia impacts intimacy and relationships, and about how we as speech therapists and we as the medical community can help with those things. My plan for us to improve accessibility and make my own kind of communication style a little bit easier. Trying to go at a slower pace. I have lots of graphics that look like this on slides. You know, perhaps, I assume, that already Zoom comes with closed captions integrated. But if you haven't used that feature before, I highly recommend it. For me, I have to click the button that says More, and then I have the option of showing closed captions. and throughout, time to talk together so that you don't have to wait till the very end and forget what you were going to say. 2.5 hours is a long time. So we have the option of talking as we go. Okay, that's enough background for now. There we go. So I perhaps don't have to tell you this. This is something that I often have to tell other healthcare professionals. I have to remind them that relationships matter. They're not just something kind of fun to have. Our romantic relationships aren't kind of just no one's business. Relationships matter to our overall life. Because we know that having strong relationships supports emotional well-being, helps people feel more sense of purpose, and helps improve just our overall feelings of quality of life. So we feel better about our whole lives if we feel good about our relationships, both our romantic relationships and also the other relationships in our lives, our families, our friends. And if I'm a speech therapist who only cares about speech therapy things, if I only care about the way people talk, romantic relationships especially actually support recovery. They support my clients getting better at talking. They encourage life participation. So they help folks do all of the things that people care about in their lives. So hobbies, they encourage people to go out to the grocery store. They become the central point of connection for people to do other things. They increase connection to others, friend networks, other networks. And so we see faster progress in stroke recovery with increased life participation. And we see increased life participation with strong romantic relationships and strong central relationships if you don't already have a romantic relationship. Strong relationships with caregivers, for example. So we know that strong relationships support well-being and recovery. And we know that aphasia often changes how we connect with friends, families, and our romantic partners after a stroke or a brain injury. My question to you all is, how do romantic relationships affect your life? Do you notice them having a special place in your life? Has this been important to you?
Laura,
Yes.
I am content.
You are content?
I am content.
Oh, that makes me so happy to hear.
I am content. I'm very happy. I'm listening to this in Williamstown, Massachusetts, and I am content. Very happy.
I am so pleased that somebody is content in Williamstown.
I'm blessed. I mean, I'm blessed years. I had a stroke 10 years ago with aphasia, but now improving, always improving. I'm just content with what you've done. I'm listening to this opportunity with my wife and good friends for my life. Very beautiful day, beautiful happiness, and I'm here listening to this, and I am content. I'm a very happy person, so thank you.
That makes me so happy to hear. And it looks beautiful out, my goodness.
Yes, beautiful out here. It's gorgeous.
If I could, yes, in relationships with my wife, it's in my early or even now, it's hard to be. Sometimes it's hard that am I still the man that I was? And my wife always says that I am, and it's really hard, for me to try to get through everything and and say that I'm still the man I was, but my wife is always there with me.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. And that's actually one of the first things we're going to talk about. So thank you so much for your sharing and your vulnerability that a lot of people with aphasia feel like, am I still me? Am I still the person that you fell in love with? I don't recognize this version of me. And this is something new to negotiate, and it can be painful to negotiate. And it's one of the first things that we kind of need to be thinking about if we're going to show up as ourselves, whatever this new version is, in romantic relationships. I'm going to read off two of the things that are in the chat just so that they have been said out loud. And then please, I would love for your share, Rick. We have one person saying, my husband is the supportive person in my life, and many hearts in relation to that. People are reacting. And yes, another person saying, oh, that's you. She's a caregiver. Yes. Do you want to say that out loud too? If the frustration is like,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
do not feel like you have to do it anymore. But if you want to, please know I am here to pause. We all get it. And if right now you're like, "Pfft," then in the future, yes, come back to us. Feel free, like keep talking. We have somebody in the chat saying, my past relationships were the reason I had a stroke. There you have it. Oh. And someone else saying, my wife is my everything, caregiver, blessing, and more. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing the gamut of experiences, really. I'm going to move forwards. I am also on purpose not reading people's name in the chat out loud. I can see who you are, but just for the recording and for anonymity purposes later, because we said that that was part of the anonymous thing. Okay, so no surprise here, because this is why we're here. Aphasia can change our romantic relationships. And really common changes that people notice are decreased closeness, like that feeling of emotional closeness. Yeah, I'm seeing that that's resonating with some of you. That feeling of emotional closeness. Decreased talking about feelings. Now, some people don't talk about their feelings to begin with. There's all sorts of social stuff where different people from different parts of society feel like they might not be able to talk about their emotions to begin with. A lot of men feel this way. And so we might already have not a lot of talking about feelings, but then the stroke comes, the aphasia comes, and it can be even harder to talk about feelings, especially if we weren't doing it in the first place. And decreased physical touch. And when I say that, and people think, well, Laura's a sex educator, they think I'm using some sort of fluffy word for less sex. And look, if I'm going to say sex, I'm just going to say sex. I hope you have headphones in if you're in a coffee shop. When I say physical touch, I mean physical touch. I mean holding hands. Yes, sex, but also sitting next to each other on the couch. Some people after stroke find that the way that they used to sleep, maybe on their left side, kind of curled up like this, it isn't comfortable anymore. Or you know what? I should have said right side. Maybe on their right side, curled up like this, isn't comfortable anymore because that whole right side is tingly and numb and awful. And so now they're sleeping propped up on a pillow, and maybe there's a wedge, or maybe they're in the recliner. And so some of those moments of just touching each other, just cuddling in bed, holding hands, just being near each other are harder or don't show up quite as easily anymore because where our bodies are in space has changed. We used to cuddle. Now we can't because one person's in a recliner. Why does this happen? Well, I mean, sure, the recliner thing is its own thing, but there are a few emotional things that can crop up. Oh, yes. Sorry, we have a question, and I just blew right past it. Or something to say?
Yeah, it's. I just want to say that there, you were talking about, hugging or something like that, uh, and you were talking. This is nothing about aphasia, but after a stroke, my I have to sit in a different in a couch. I used to be on the left side. Now I sit on the right side so that nobody can come next to my right side of me because of the pain on the right side of me. I don't want anybody to touch me on the right side. So that is the same thing if we are in the bedroom. I don't want to be on the right, like I try to keep my right side away, or what I do, it's very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But
Uh,
sorry.
but thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing. And it seems if you've never had a stroke, if you've never known anybody who's had a stroke or a brain injury, a person might think, okay, so what? Right side, left side of the couch. What does that mean? But it changes your whole routine. And it forces people often use the word renegotiation. And to me, that sounds like there should be lawyers involved. And that's not what it is. But it forces this, like, well, what do we do now? Sort of thing. And often, a lot of times, we just don't bother. We don't have that conversation. We don't think about it on purpose. We just fall into a new routine, a different routine, and it may or may not feel good. So we may fall into a routine and think, okay, right side, left side, who cares? Or we might fall into a routine where it's like, there's some distance here. There's some physical distance, maybe folks know that one side hurts or is uncomfortable, and so they just try to give you a lot of space in general because they don't want to hurt you. But then you're living with a lot of space in general. And a hug is nice every once in a while, that feeling of space can make it feel like, gosh, no one, like people don't want to be around me, or that there's physical space can lead to emotional space. And it's just because of the right side or the left side of the couch. So thinking about it on purpose, even these just very small things, or things that seem small but maybe aren't so small, can really be one of the first steps to just feeling more emotional closeness with the people around us, especially spouses or other romantic partners. Often we don't have those conversations, though. Often we don't address these things on purpose. Maybe because it feels too small, or that we're not even thinking about it, side of the couch, not something that you're thinking about a lot on purpose. And sometimes there's bigger things at play too. So a lot of times we don't talk about these things because we're stressed and we're tired. So over here, there's so many other things to be thinking about and dealing with. And especially right after a stroke or a brain injury, a person is just your brain is working so hard on healing that you're so tired all the time. So, what are you going to spend your energy on? Mostly survival mode. And so, breaking out of survival mode and finding our way back to caring about the day to day, that's a shift. So folks are stressed, folks are tired, both the person with aphasia and also often the care partner, romantic relationship partner, maybe is also learning new stuff, is maybe picking up more things at home, maybe working more to support the bills. They're often quite tired too. And so maybe we're all a little bit more stressed and we're all a little bit more tired. It's not a guarantee, but it's common. We often have both partners feeling kind of guilty, kind of guilty for their own feelings, kind of guilty for wanting anything different or anything more. So the person with aphasia often feels like, my gosh, look how much you're doing, my lover. Look how much you've picked up. Look how much you've done for me. This was never the plan. It was never the plan to have a brain injury or a stroke. This was not the goal. And now look at what you have done for me. How the many ways you have helped me, the many ways you have been around for me. How could I ask for anything more? How could I say, I would love something different? How can I bring up anything other than thank you? Because I never meant to have a stroke. Which, as I say that out loud, of course, you didn't mean to have a stroke, right? But a lot of times we don't say that out loud. It's just on the inside. And so having feelings of frustration, having feelings of wanting something different, having feelings of needing more or needing different leads to these feelings of guilt. Like, oh, how dare I? And then loved ones, care partners, often also have feelings of guilt. They often feel like, well, they didn't mean to have a stroke. Of course they didn't. I promised I would be here for you. I can't say, hey, this is hard. I can't say, hey, I'd love a back rub, even if it's a single-handed back rub. I can't say, hey, can we shift these things? Because it's not my loved one's fault. So I feel guilty having this conversation. I don't want to put anything more on their plate. Look how much is already on their plate. So everybody feels kind of guilty bringing up this stuff and kind of uncomfortable. I'm seeing in the chat, being with someone who makes you feel alone is far worse than being physically alone. Such a good point. And also a photo of two people who are sitting next to each other on what looks like a beautiful hike. Yes, you have something to share.
Yeah, in that picture, it seems like it's really nice to be there. But for me, if I think that I would be alone because I can't see, this one's a good one because I could see my wife. If I was on the other side of her, I would not see her because of my stroke I can't see on the right side. So I have to ask people to be on the left side of me so I can see people. And not like people won't come to my right side. So in that picture, that's a good picture because I, I'm I'm with my wife. If I was on the other side, it would be like I'm alone on a cliff.
Is that a picture of you?
No.
I didn't know.
But thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That challenges seeing to the right, which sometimes we call like right-sided inattention, which also can feel kind of like I'm paying attention. It's not there. Um, can, yeah, having people kind of disappear on you just provides you less of an opportunity to feel like somebody else is around. That's such a good point. Thank you. And for anybody watching this, the picture of the two people on a hike, they're sitting down on a rock, and the person who seemed, the man is on the right, and the woman is on the left. So if you had right-sided inattention, you would still be able to see the person on your left. Okay. Oh, yes. A lot of times folks have feelings of reduced self-esteem. That's what we were starting to talk about earlier, that feeling of, am I still the man or the woman that I was before? That feeling of like, maybe I don't really like myself right now. I don't recognize this version of me. Um, and if I don't really like me, how can you like me? Not everybody feels that way, but plenty of
Yes,
people do.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
thank you. Um, oh, we have in the chat, excellent point regarding guilt. Stroke survivors feel guilty about expressing their needs, and care partners feel guilty for asking for their own needs to be recognized. Yeah, absolutely. So all of these things kind of stink, right? Like they don't feel very good. And in addition to that, we have so many changes after a stroke, after a brain injury, that a lot of the times we're kind of in this waiting period, this waiting to feel normal, waiting to feel like myself, just kind of waiting, like waiting for something else to change such that this isn't my reality anymore. And then I can move forwards. And so this leads to this kind of not today's cycle where, I'm not talking about my feelings and I'm kind of feeling guilty about even having feelings, and I'm tired and I'm stressed and I'm waiting for things to feel a little bit more normal. And so like maybe tomorrow we'll deal with any of this whole like quality of life stuff. Maybe tomorrow like we'll talk about the relationship, like, and this stuff maybe changes a little, but it doesn't change a lot, or it changes, but not enough to feel normal. And so we just kind of keep not bringing up needs. We kind of keep not addressing romantic relationships because there's just this other stuff kind of going on. And so a lot of my work when I work with folks with aphasia about their relationships is to kind of bust into this cycle. It's not to provide some sort of magic, have you thought about this? And then they do the thing, and then everything's like, oh yeah, romance again. It really is very much just kind of busting into this cycle, taking little moments to, okay, let's actually talk about the relationship. Okay, could we change these little things? Could we put any amount of focus and thinking and talking and feeling into the romantic relationship? And as we start to just break into this cycle a little bit, as we put a little bit of attention to the romantic relationship, it breaks the cycle up. Having one little conversation, spending one little time, just like cuddling, spending just a little bit of time on purpose dealing with the romantic relationship and being partners again. Not a care partner, but just a partner. Not a person with aphasia, but just a partner, a spouse, a loved one, just being on the same level and the same plane a little bit leads to a little bit more and a little bit more, um, in a way that I think is both very small and kind of profound sometimes. Oh, we have some, I mean, it's Denise. Denise says we hug every day. I think that's beautiful. That's, I think, our first or second tip towards the end. So good on you for already being there. So if this feels like you, I know that this sounds kind of depressing, but the really good news is that you're absolutely not alone, and it doesn't have to be like this. A lot of this is kind of a natural consequence of the stroke or the aphasia. Like, it happens, but we just don't need to let it continue to happen. Once we are thinking about it on purpose and directly, we can start to do something else. Because most couples affected by aphasia still love each other. Again, I'm a sex educator, still have desire for each other, both physically and romantically. They just might not talk about it. We just might not be bringing it up. So, yes, 3 things we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about how we see ourselves, like how I see myself as a person with aphasia. We're going to talk about the partnered relationship, me and my partner, and then some more like, hey, try this kind of tips to move forward. We're going to talk about how I see myself. There are a bunch of people much smarter than I am who talk about aphasia as identity theft. So, like a way of stealing who you are. Yes, Denise, you get that fan. As kind of stealing who you are and how you think about yourself. Because language isn't just about how we communicate. It's about how we understand ourselves. It's how we build our identity, how we share who we are with other people. And then we get feedback from other people about who we are. And we think, oh, yeah, I am a person who is funny because other people find me funny. Or there's in the chat, it says, it's hot in here. And then many like kind of laughing emojis. And then there's fire. Yeah. Yeah, so then we get feedback about from other people about like, oh, I am funny. Oh, I am whatever. Funny is central to my understanding of my own identity. So that comes up. I am playful. I am kind. But a lot of how we express who we are and then receive that kind of feedback, that social feedback, is through language and talking. And so as language, as communication becomes harder, it's not just about being able to build a grocery list. It's not just about being able to talk to somebody on the phone about your cable plan. It's about, sorry, why did I say cable plan? Does anybody have one of those anymore? It's also about how we understand who we are intrinsically as a person. And so, yeah, kindness is everything. We tell stories to explain ourselves to others and to ourselves. And aphasia can make this really hard. With aphasia, it can feel harder to show others who you are. And it can disrupt that story that we tell ourselves about our own life and about our future. So as we move forwards in this world and we're trying to understand, like, gosh, who am I after this stroke? What is this relationship? Who am I to you? A lot of that lies in the story that we tell ourselves. And if finding the words that we want to say or the words that we want to say to ourselves is really hard, understanding ourselves can be really hard. If you're a researcher or a person here who is getting continuing education units for being here. On the bottom, like there's a lot of wonderful research about like narrative therapy, the narratives of that we tell ourselves, and how stroke and aphasia can disrupt that narrative. Katie Strong is doing some really amazing work in this area, but that's not where I am at the moment. So just FYI, things you can Google. And in addition to that, in addition to the stories that we tell ourselves, often we have a change in our what we call our social identity after stroke, and especially with aphasia. People with aphasia talk about, oh, Katie was just speaker. She's amazing. People with aphasia talk about losing many identities at the like all at once, which is really disruptive. Things like professional identity, if you were working before the stroke or the brain injury. Yes, so supportive. I really appreciate you. I'm not saying anybody's names because of the recording, but you know who I'm talking about. Yeah, if you were working before the stroke, the changes in your professional identity or your career roles, I'm a speech therapist. If I suddenly wasn't a speech therapist, like who am I? That can be really, really hard. Who do I tell people at parties I am? We've never met. What do I say? That can be really disruptive to your whole understanding of who you are. In the home, maybe you were the one who handled things, whatever that means, at home or with parenting. I'm the one who knows when my kids are going to soccer practice, and like I'm the one who volunteers at school, or I'm the one who knows how to fix the car. As stroke makes that harder to do because I no longer have control over my right side, and so now I can't do the things that I would have done before. As like aphasia makes that harder to do because now communication with all of these different people is hard. Maybe I'm not the one who handles those specific things at home. Down here on the lower left. It can disrupt our trusting friendships and participation in social groups. So this is bigger than the relation or different from our romantic relationships, but also includes the romantic relationships that it can change, like people lose friends. Not on purpose, but sometimes those feelings of friendship start to dissipate. And so we start relying on the people that we live with a little bit more for those friendship feelings. It can feel more lonely. You used to golf with people and now golfing is hard. So my golf buddies and I don't hang out anymore. The things that I used to say to my friends about my romantic relationship, I don't have anybody else to vent to anymore because it was at golf that I used to do that. And so we can kind of lose some of that identity in there. Sometimes folks start ignoring you or they don't know how to talk to a person with aphasia. So we can feel really ignored and like we're not included in conversations or like we're not relevant to the conversation. So we start excluding ourselves. And then feeling like an equal partner in romantic relationships. Like we're both on the same page and we're both on the same playing field. In a lot of the research that I do in a lot of the groups and like one-on-one sessions that I do, people talk about this like caregiver and patient dynamic that shows up instead of like partner and partner. And so that feeling of being an equal, even if it's not on purpose, but we can lose that in that caregiver-patient dynamic. And communication confidence can go down. And weirdly, it's not surprising that our confidence in communicating can go down. But weirdly, it doesn't depend on aphasia severity. People who have really severe aphasia can be really confident in their communication. And some people who have really mild, like only a little bit of aphasia, can have really low communication confidence because they're just like, this isn't me. This isn't the way I talk. I don't want to talk. And confidence can change based on the situation. So, like, are you at home or are you with a bunch of strangers? Is it on the phone? Oh no, the phone. Are we in a group or are we alone with just one other person? So, like, how confident we feel in our own communicating can also change from situation to situation and is not the same thing as how severe aphasia is. So, why do we care about all of these things in relation to the relationship, right? Like, as a human, as an individual, we care. But why do we care about these things in the relationship? Because how we feel about ourselves impacts how we show up in a relationship. If I constantly feel like I'm waiting to come back to myself, then it's hard for me to believe that any of the things that I feel like I want or I need, or things that I feel like maybe I could do, are really feasible right now. That recognizing that the things that have changed is kind of the first step in working on some of those changes. Recognizing that, oh, yeah, my communication confidence has gone way down. Or, huh, I've lost all of those social roles that I used to have. And maybe that's not something I want to continue for my future. So maybe that's something to work on. Um, it's the first step to actually then working on these things. Or more abstractly, hey, my whole self-confidence, my whole self-concept is as this person that I was before the stroke. When I tell myself about who I am, it's the pre-stroke me. And I haven't really thought about who I am after the stroke. Yeah. So maybe it's time. Maybe it's time to start figuring out what my story is as me right now. Realizing that we're waiting can also help us choose to move forwards. That, maybe today is today. Step one is today. So if any of this resonates with you, and it doesn't have to, these are just common things that people feel. But if any of this resonates with you, these might be things that you want to start thinking about or making that first step towards, how can I find love for myself right now? For yourself, because you matter, and also for your relationship. So my question to you, have you noticed that what roles have changed in your relationship, if any? And if you've started to work on this or think about those roles, what has helped you adapt? Maybe we can all learn from each other a little bit.
I'll start. My role was I was a worker. I was a mental health counselor. I had a full-time job, and then nothing. I mean, then I couldn't work. I didn't have money. I didn't have insurance, and lost my whole identity. And then being recovery was a whole full-time job that I didn't sign up for.
You didn't ask for that. Would anyone else like to share? I have a practice where I count to 20 in my head after I ask a question to give people enough time to possibly answer. So that's what I'm doing. I see that you unmuted.
Yes. I was like, if we had to go someplace, I was always the driver. Uh, and I I can't drive anymore. Uh, so The only thing that is a good thing is that uh, my wife she gets she gets the gas, so I don't have to do that. So that's the only thing. I would like to drive. I still wish I could drive, but
You still want me to get the gas?
yeah, but now I don't want to do the gas anymore. All right, thank you.
No, thank you. So if we were in a more one-on-one or a less recorded session, I would be asking you things like, how does that make you feel? Because often one of the things that I love about the two of you, I think I hear your wife on the other end of the microphone, is that you keep bringing up these like real life situations, right? The couch, the driving, that so many folks would think, all right, well, she can drive, so whatever. But it's about that change in role, right? How much of our society tells us, well, the man takes the woman out on a date and he drives and she gets chauffeured around. And like that is the dynamic. That is how the man is man. And like in reality, it's a car. Like it's just a car, whatever. But on the other side, we've been told our whole lives, like this is how men are men. You open the door, how much of a shift in who you are as a person and who you are as a man is just, I don't drive anymore because I don't see on the right side. We have a chat. Life is full of challenges. It's just another challenge. Everyone's situation is different. Absolutely. And recognizing those challenges can be kind of the step one in moving forwards. Another chat. I quietly watch for things that appear hard for him to do and do it before it needs to be done. He can then do it next time sooner or choose to wait for me to do it. No discussion needed about I can't. That is very much a choice, you know? And I so appreciate how much you are thinking about the thing that you are doing. I think that is also often a burden that, or maybe not a burden, but like that is a choice that many caregivers and relationship partners who don't have aphasia or who haven't had a stroke make. You know, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to take that, like, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to take over. I'm just going to, like, this is my job now. And often they don't talk about it at all. And the feeling is often, of course I would do this for you. I love you. Of course, I am going to take this. I don't want you to feel ever like a burden. I don't want you to feel like anything other than love from me. For some of the couples that I have worked with, opening up the conversation about who does what after stroke, who does what after aphasia, actually can lead to the person with aphasia feeling a little bit more ownership over their life. Feeling a little bit more like, you know what, I still can take out the trash. And so I will take out the trash. Maybe taking out the trash was actually not something I ever did before the stroke, but this is my contribution. This is something that I can do, that I can do. And I see, like, that's totally fine. You absolutely don't need to, that this does not have to be true of your relationship, but that has been true for some of the other relationships that I have been fortunate enough to get to briefly be a part in conversation with. That sometimes having those conversations about like who does what can feel a little bit more relationship balancing. Maybe not the trash. We have a chat. Initially, I think survivors can need a lot of practical care, and care partners feel like they are taking on a parental role. And to transition between partner and parent role can be really confusing. It can be really confusing, yeah. And like brain confusing, like what am I doing here? And also emotion, like heart confusing. Um, like I'm not used to having these feelings of needing to be a caregiver at all, perhaps. Or I'm not used to having these feelings of like thinking about what I am doing on in the relationship on purpose this much. So yeah, it can be a lot. Thank you all for sharing. So helpful. It's really nice to hear from people. One of the nice things is that identity can be rebuilt, or built anew. Um, just because we may or may not be feeling like, gosh, who am I right now? Who am I in this relationship? Who am I more broadly? Um, does not mean that that has to be forever. Things like connection, participating outside of the home, and finding peer support can help us rebuild sense of self. So, aphasia support groups, if you have access to them, they exist both physically in person in a lot of places, and online. When people ask me like, hey, where would I go to find an aphasia support group? I usually just Google, but also I often say, I bet if there's a university near you, I bet they have one. That's often true. It's not always true.
If
There's,
not, you can always go to Just Ask. We're always there for everyone. Every Monday night, jump in and you have friends and a place to be.
there you go. We're already here. Um, they often help people feel understood, valued. Um, because there are other people who have aphasia there. So folks aren't going through the same thing, but you're going through adjacent things. Also, participating in hobbies and meaningful activities can help support more of a sense of self. So, finding ways to either try to get back into things that you were doing before the stroke or the brain injury, or if that just doesn't feel safe or feasible or something that you want to do. You know, some of my clients, they're like, well, I used to drive race cars and that doesn't feel safe anymore. Fair. Or they're like, all of my old friends are golfing. And where have they been in the past 2 years? Where did they go? I don't really want to be around these people, so I don't really want to go and golf. Finding new ways of being in community with other people, new hobbies or activities, can help build a stronger sense of self. One of the ways that we understand who we are is in relation to other people. And so maybe I am going to take a painting class and I'm going to be really, really terrible at it because I don't know how to paint. But I'm going to be in a room with some other people who are also really terrible painters, and we're going to be together and we're going to maybe talk with one another. Um, and now this is part of who I am and what I do. Goal setting can also help us find some smaller steps forward. What would you like the next year to look like? If next year was different from this year, what would that difference be? And if that's the thing that I want, what are some small steps I can take to get there? So I have a word finding difficulty due to some brain things that I have going on. I don't think I have aphasia. Um, so I'm not going to use that as a personal example. But I moved to a new community where I didn't know anybody. And I was pretty sad about it. I was feeling fairly lonely. and I work from home, so I didn't have many connections. I thought next year I want to have somebody that I can go get coffee with and have like real conversation. I can tell them personal things about myself. Somebody that will call me up when they're upset that lives in this community. Okay, if that's my goal for a year from now, what are some of the smaller steps that I need to take to get to that goal? I need to meet some people, probably more than one person, because I bet I'm not going to strike gold on my first try. And if I need to meet some people, I need to put my body in places where I'm going to meet people. So I actually need to go to where can I go? And so if that's my goal, finding little steps to get there can be really helpful. Okay. Before we move on to the partnered relationship, thoughts, questions, things that we need to be talking about that we haven't yet.
Uh, Thank you.
Thank you.
Christine, I see your hand up. Oh, but you're on mute, so sorry.
Sorry. What if you are not currently in a romantic relationship?
What a great question. I suppose one of the first things when we go back to that goal setting is, do you want to be? Certainly, there's many ways. Oh no. There we go. There's many ways of being in the world, and not everybody wants to be in a romantic relationship. But a lot of people with aphasia have difficulty dating. And dating is usually the first step in being in a long-term romantic relationship. Dating can be really challenging dating can be really challenging. That is one of the ends of the sentence. And in addition, it can be extra challenging with aphasia. Some things that I have been told are a lot of dating happens online these days. And so one of the nice things about being online is that you have things like spell checkers and grammar, AI, whatever, that can help cultivate a little online profile that will never let anybody else know that you have aphasia. And also, that's a problem, right? That figuring out, when do we talk about the stroke or brain injury? When do I disclose about my aphasia? How do I find people that won't judge me or that will be more comfortable with me as a person with aphasia? How do I make it clear that, aphasia is a language disorder. It's not who I am. It doesn't affect my intelligence. It doesn't affect how gosh darn funny I am. It doesn't. I'm still me. And I have aphasia. Can be really, really challenging online. So we have a chat that when they meet you, they're going to be disappointed. Yeah, whenever a person is not necessarily the same as how they presented themselves online, that can lead to a big rupture, right? So we do want to disclose, we want to show people who we are, and at the same time, the online thing makes it challenging. I don't have phenomenal answers, because I don't have phenomenal answers about dating in general for anyone ever. But folks who I have worked with have found often there's more comfort in meeting people in person than online, because of this weirdness that can happen around language, and honestly, because dating online can just be hard. It's a lot of failure for everybody. Aphasia or no aphasia, it can be kind of miserable. But often, as people get to know you in person, that can be helpful. So I've had folks who have much more success with like starting hobbies, going and finding people in groups, and then you get to know each other, and then the dating kind of happens more gradually after that. I don't have online platforms that I would specifically recommend for people with aphasia that are more anything. Online dating is really, really hard. You can, but then things that I would be thinking about are like, when do I disclose? Do I put it in my profile? That's a personal decision. I think it can be a great thing to do. How do I bring it up? Often we want to bring it up before that first date, if it's possible. But yeah, dating is very, very challenging. And I think one of the first things that sometimes can be helpful for people is really solidifying a story of who you are post-stroke or brain injury, so that you can tell that story easily. And that can be helpful. Does that speak to anything that you were hoping that I might speak to? I know. I know. Fair enough. Okay.
So
I
there's
was
no
very,
aphasia date club or date.
There isn't. I've actually asked some people, like, would you be interested in that? And people just laugh at me. They're like, if I can't talk, well, what am I going to do with somebody else? And I'm like, okay, you can talk. It's just, there's a little bit more, there might be some pausing, you know? But we get each other. Fine. So far I haven't had any biters on what is going to be my next thing, which is a dating app for people with aphasia. It might fail spectacularly.
I was married, and then the week after divorce got sick.
Oh man.
This is really bizarre for me.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I am so sorry.
me too.
Yeah.
I mean, they do say that those really stressful times in your life, like, increase the risk of things like stroke. That's really hard.
Drop the content tape.
All right, I've got to learn how to make an app. We'll make an app. We'll
Okay.
start some dating, even if it's long distance. Many are having divorces. Yeah, and like around the time of those big kind of upheavals in our lives, stroke is more likely. And then also I feel like there isn't great information about marriage after stroke and like the longevity of marriage after stroke. There is a bunch of research about the longevity of marriage after traumatic brain injury, and it ain't great. There's a lot of divorces that happen after brain injury. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to move forwards because otherwise I never will, because I'm chatty. Let's talk about partners. So we talked about how often the person with aphasia has a change in sense of who they are. They might have reduced confidence in social situations. They might have uncertainty about their role in the relationship. Often we have something of a mirror in the partner's experience. They might have some questions about the right things to do or say in this situation because we haven't been in it before. They might have changes to their own identity and feelings of confidence too. Especially if they're feeling like, I don't know what the right thing is to do or say here, but they also might be feeling like, gosh, I I've never been the care partner before. What does that mean? Suddenly I'm in charge of all of this. Like, they handed me a big packet at the hospital and suddenly I'm in charge. What in the world? I'm the one who has to know whether the car needs to be taken for an oil change. And I've literally never had to know that before. They might have uncertainty about their own role in the relationship too. And so identity disruption winds up affecting both people. And this is something I bring up because recognizing this can help both of you feel less alone. Like you're both going through something together, and you can feel more like a team if you maybe want to talk about it or want to bring it up. And if you are here and you do have a romantic partner, but they are not here, like grab this video, blame it on me, right? Like this crazy lady was saying this stuff. And I just kind of want to know, is this you? Have you had this? Do you feel this? Because that's something we might be able to do together, work on together, talk about together, negotiate together. Too many clicks. There we go. A lot of couples struggle to balance that feeling of caregiving and that feeling of romance. Often one partner is taking on more responsibilities, shifting in daily chores, decision making, while the other person, often the person with aphasia, is feeling more dependent for help. And so there might be that feeling of like, we need to find a different balance, a new balance here. Because in most romantic relationships, we lean on each other. We rely on each other, both people. And it's that leaning and relying on each other that a lot of that feeling of emotional closeness comes from. And so if one person's feeling like they're relying more than they want to be, and the other person doesn't feel like they can lean back, we have this unequal power dynamic that is not necessarily rife for emotional intimacy. It can be really, really hard to feel that feeling of romantic closeness. The caring often stays. Not always. Certainly, some people have gone through divorce, and that's a whole thing. Some people were already experiencing relationship issues, and then a stroke happened. But often caring stays. But that feeling of emotional intimacy, or sometimes even also physical intimacy, can fizzle. And so this is a slide, and this is a part where I'm going to talk about sex a little bit. There's often a lot of stress. And although some people are exceptions to this rule, and they actually have a reverse experience, for a lot of people, stress is not sexy. For a lot of people, feelings of stress does not, I don't want anybody to touch me. Like, don't touch me, don't hold me, don't kiss me. Like, I'm feeling stressed, so I don't want like physical connection like that. Some people are the opposite. Some people, they start feeling stressed out and like one of their release valves is sexual intimacy. But for a lot of people, stress isn't sexy. Physical intimacy and sexuality might feel awkward to talk about. A lot of people don't ever talk about it. Like stroke or no stroke, a lot of people don't ever talk about it. It's a very physical thing, you know, like we hold hands and then maybe there's a little bit more like arm around the shoulder kind of canoodling, and then there's a look, and then there's the bedroom, and nobody ever says boo. We have a chat, then why even get married? And in movies, that's kind of how it works, right? Like there's leaning and physical things, and nobody ever talks. So it might feel kind of awkward to talk about sex, especially if that's not something that you've talked about before, which a lot of people don't. Both partners might feel that the other partner has bigger things to worry about, the trash taking out, or the like, well, they're right side feels like it's on fire all of the time. Um, uh, Sex is way down the list. So they don't bring it up. So we don't talk about it. Even if like that, actually, this is one of the big ways that we used to feel close, and emotional intimacy and physical intimacy is really important to me and to our relationship. But suddenly it's down the list. Often there are physical changes after stroke, also the side effect of many medications. And so we might have changes to libido. We might have changes to how, like, what parts of our body we can feel at all or like have touch to without it being painful. Um, that changes like positioning stuff, and it also just change like that changes sexual positioning stuff, and it also changes like the ability to put your arm around somebody on the couch. And guilt, again, with this not wanting to put more on the other people's plate. And so, time and again, we've seen that sexual intimacy might die off with this feeling of a caregiver dynamic or with any of these other issues. That doesn't mean that it has to die off forever. But if this is something that you have experienced or that you're concerned about, again, you're not alone. This is really, really, really common. And again, with that waiting to feel normal. So if we're just kind of putting relationships and goals on hold, waiting to feel back to normal before engaging with stuff that we care about, this waiting can lead to like, okay, this actually is becoming our new normal. The relationship is kind of just drifting a little bit. And then later and later, it can be much harder to reconnect with your old self and with one another. And that doesn't make this a lack of love. That change in confidence, the change in sense of self can lead to this stuff. It's like it kind of makes sense. And understanding that this is a pattern, that this is happening, is really the first step in like, okay, well, if this is happening and if we care, we can try to address it on purpose. We can do something. So you remember that cycle that like, okay, well, not today. It can come up here too. Questions for you are about how we might start addressing these things. What makes you feel loved in your relationship? And how do you express love? And whether or not you have a current relationship, like how have you felt, what makes you feel love before? And how would you like to express love? How do you usually express love? Cards. Humor. I'm reading the chat. Oh, like romantic, like cards you get at the grocery store or Hallmark. I was thinking playing cards and trying to be like, yeah, like Hallmark type cards. Got it. Oh, that's sweet. They've gotten very expensive. Games, like card games, date nights. Yeah. So I'm seeing like giving gifts, banter with each other, having dedicated time where like on purpose, what is a date night? A date night is, especially if you live together, like what is a date night? It's on purpose, going and doing something for the purpose of reconnecting with each other and not for other purposes. Yeah. So I see hugging. So there's like that physical touch, cooking a meal, love when it's returned to you. So it's this kind of two-direction thing. Yeah. And I'm seeing a lot of like head nods and thumbs up. Love that. And these are each things that we can still do after a stroke. Cooking can be challenging. But if that is something that is important to a person, yeah, definitely when it's returned to you. If that's important to you, there are ways that we can work on that. And like, so I'm as a speech therapist, I'm like, oh, my occupational therapy friends. But we can keep things on the left. We can preset things up if you want to cook a nice meal for your partner. Okay, so tips and tricks. One of the things about, okay, so this part, I'm just going to give you some like, hey, this might help. And if it doesn't feel like this is the thing that you want to do, wait for the next slide. Maybe that will resonate with your version of love because we're all a little bit different, right? I honestly, if my husband gave me a card, I'd be like, what in the world are you doing? Because that's not how he has ever shown how he shows love to me. He shows love to me by cooking. Um, and for some people, they're going to hear me say, yeah, hey, talk about your feelings. And they're going to go, what is this hippy dippy stuff? And it just might not be you. So if that particular thing is not you, that's okay. You don't have to do all of the things, but maybe incorporating a thing or two can be helpful. Oh, you feel loved when love is returned to you. And I also see mutual yelling at how bad the Red Sox are playing. Those moments of connection of like, we both have, I mean, I know that it's a joke. I know or not a joke because of what the Red Sox are up to. But to be a little bit serious about about the joke, those moments of connection about like something separate, like it's not about the stroke and it's not about the frustrating thing that we're doing and it's not about like that it's something else and we're both on the same page and we're both on the same playing field are really a big deal. They're really a big deal because how often do we get stuck in these ruts of like one person saying, "Oh, remember I'm gonna make you say the word. I know what you want, but I'm gonna make you talk." Like, because your speech therapist said that you need to be talking more, or like I'm just going to do this thing for you because like you can't right now, or just like how many times do we get stuck on in these like uneven things where it's a caregiver partner dynamic or like caregiver patient dynamic, yeah, versus like let's both shout at the TV and it doesn't matter what we're shouting at the TV. And maybe it's let fewer words than I used to shout at the TV, but we're both doing the same thing at the same time and we're both equals in it. It sounds silly. I'm just like, thank you for yelling at the TV because that equality is such it's just such a thing. Okay, stop talking, Laura. Talk about something else. Yeah, okay. This is what we were talking about. Breaking the silence. Avoiding hard conversations can lead to isolation, can lead to us feeling separate from one another. Okay, there's stuff in the chat about the Red Sox. But how do you start? How do you start? If two of you are here together, make a plan for when you're going to do it. It doesn't have to be right now. Say, okay, we're going to talk about our relationship Friday at 2 p.m. There's nothing special about Friday at 2 p.m. But like, when are we going to do it? How can we break that not today cycle? Maybe we'll do it now, or maybe we'll do it Friday at 2. When are we going to talk about our relationship? And here are some simple conversation starters if you want to do it now. Do you remember when and then, you're talking about like a romantic time or like a thing that you used to do. Or I need help with making it about I can be helpful rather than like you need to do this thing. I need help with, or maybe I'm feeling lonely, or I'm feeling like we haven't had a date in a while and I miss it. And because these things can be so hard to talk about, like they can be extra hard to talk about. You already have aphasia. Talking might already be hard. And as soon as we start adding emotions onto the talking, harder. So if I'm nervous about it, if this isn't something that I usually talk about, so I haven't like gotten a lot of practice with these words or phrases, um, talking can be even more challenging. As a speech therapist, I'm like, if you have a speech therapist, you can plan and practice these things with your speech therapist. But in addition to that, writing and drawing can be helpful. Using pictures and photos. So maybe you want to actually bring out some photos of or on your phone, because who has printed pictures these days? You want to be trotting out these photos of like, oh, do you remember when we did this? Remember that weekend at the cabin? Do you remember that time we decided that we were going to take a pottery class as a date and we both failed miserably at it? Do you remember when we did, oh, remember this birthday, how special it was? Bringing out these like physical things to make it easier to communicate because we can point and we can like remind ourselves and we both know what it is we're talking about. And like we can use gestures or rating scales. Um, it- Especially when you're starting to talk about like, okay, well, would this feel good to you? Like, would it be nice if we did this? Would you like it if we like cuddled? Would you like it if we had this particular date night? Would you like it more or less than this other thing? Like we can use external stuff to help that be a little bit easier. Here are some practical ways to reconnect. Goals are usually having some intentional time and doing it repeatedly. Another goal is often this feeling of equality. And I talk about power dynamics, and it sounds like I I don't know. It's another thing that seems like, well, there should be a lawyer involved. But all I'm talking about is like that feeling of a patient and a caregiver feels really unequal. You know, somebody's receiving care and somebody's providing care. How do we get away from that? How do we feel equal? And how do we feel present? If everybody's a little bit more stressed than we used to be, there's more going on, it feels like. How do we stop? How do we put down our phones and actually just be here with each other? You might think about something like a weekly coffee date. You can go out, you can stay in, but your phone is in another room, unless you're using it as a communication device to help. And you're just there with one another without other agendas. You might have daily check-in time where you're communicating with each other about your days. I worked with one couple that had just the most success with a phones off movie night. That was just like their thing. They were like, I'm going to turn my phone off and we're just going to be here together. And I'm like, you're not even talking to each other. And they're like, that's fine, but we're going to be here together. And then we're going to have something that we can both talk about afterwards, something separate. All right. It really worked for them. They loved it. You could do some positive habits. So things like sharing appreciation for one another on purpose, out loud, or in writing. Talking about your needs, that's honestly for a lot of people a lot harder than the sharing appreciation. Talking about like your emotional needs, renegotiating roles and chores. Like, yeah, okay, I used to be the one who changed the oil on the car, and now that's not something that I'm going to be doing anymore. But there's other things that I might be able to pick up. Like, I'm going to start being the one who washes the dishes or something else. I don't know. There's like a lot of stuff that goes on in a house, right? The trash taking out. I'm going to be the one who knows where the bills are, um, renegotiating those roles on purpose so that one person doesn't feel like they're always the one who's being taken care of. Trying to figure out what is it like maybe I make the bed every morning. Oh, we have a chat. Daily check-in time works great for us. And then finding shared goals. I like the number 3. So I often encourage people to think of what are 3 goals for a year from now? In a year, how would you like to see your relationship has changed? If the aphasia never gets better, and we hope that things always improve, but even if it never gets better, how would you like to see the relationship change? Maybe 3 is too many goals. Pick one. What's one concrete thing that you would like to see different in a year in comparison to right now? And then think about what are some of the small little steps on the ladder to get there. You start with the lowest rung. Spending time together on purpose often requires planning. It does. Especially like these days with all of the distractions that we have, it often requires us to do it on purpose. Oh gosh. We have a lot of chats. We played 4 games on the tablet every night to help with therapy and movie night every Friday. Another chat. Now I need a bed. Oh, brother. And another chat. Pay bills together, play cards, games help build the relationship up. Yeah, doing something that is external, right? Like that third thing that you're focusing on, not just each other, but that other thing helps to equalize things. Okay. And then creating that closeness and that physical intimacy. Intimacy is more than sex. It's about feeling close to each other. Small acts of like physical affection, holding hands, hugging, being close to each other in the ways that feel good. Like you don't torture yourself, right? If hugging actually hurts, maybe not that one. But a lot of times we drop all feelings of physical closeness because some of them don't feel good. Trying to spend some time figuring out what does feel nice, even if it's just a pat on the hand. It's really normal to feel worried or embarrassed about these changes. It's really normal to feel like, oh gosh, that's a weird thing to talk about. But it really can be helpful. Okay. I have some intimacy tips and tricks for like literally just try this if you want. And then that will be the end of the presentation, bit of the presentation. And then let's just talk, okay? So here's some things you can try. They come from the sex ed world. 20-second hug. This is a John Gottman, like the Gottmans were these are they still alive? I don't know. The Gottman Center is this big psychology center for like relationships and emotional intimacy. And they really were big proponents of this idea of a 20-second hug or a 6-second kiss. 20 seconds doesn't sound like a long time, but it's actually surprisingly long for a hug. Most of our hugs don't last 20 seconds. They found that a hug that's at least 20 seconds long, it reduces stress hormones and increases those happiness hormones. The reason that I like this is that it's a moment of just undistracted closeness. In my mind, a 20-second hug is a practice. So it's a thing that we're doing on purpose, even if it's a little challenging at first, because 20 seconds is a long time. Even if it feels a little awkward at first, because 20 seconds is a long time. It's a practice in I am dedicating this time to our relationship, even if it's just 20 seconds every day. Oh, sorry. We have another chat. My wife reads the book Jesus Calling every night out loud, and then I read it out loud. Lovely. So you could try this 20-second hug and see if this feels good to you. You can schedule alone time together. And I feel like I've been harping on this. But what are you going to do? I'm going to cuddles, watching a movie, in bed. Often, rules might include things like no phones, no caregiving. So, like, this is not the same thing as if you need help with showering or something. Like, this is not alone time together. The help with showering is not alone time together. We need to be like not doing the caregiving thing. And no work if you're working. Like, this is just us spending dedicated time together, work for the relationship. We have another chat. The hug needs to be sincere. Yeah. If physical intimacy is something that we're working on, I often suggest that we make a plan before intimacy because it's way harder to discuss in the moment. There's like a lot more emotions going on, and also for the aphasia specifically, it can be very challenging to find the right words in the moment. So making plans while emotions are calm. This again is something people don't often do. A lot of times folks tell me that like, well, if it's not spontaneous, then it's not sexy. Like, you're taking all the fun out of it. Laura, you wet blanket. You're taking all of the fun out of intimacy because, oh, there's a puppy. You're taking all the fun out of intimacy because it's supposed to be like this spontaneous fireworks sort of situation. I get it. I really do. Sometimes if I'm feeling sassy, I ask them when the last time they experienced fireworks was, because the answer is often like, it's been a hot second. It's been a moment. So like, let's work back up to fireworks. This is an individual personal choice, but it can be really helpful to talk about it in advance, to make a plan, especially if you're also noticing that like, oh my gosh, there's logistics to talk about that there just weren't logistics before, you know? How are we going to avoid me being on my right side? Maybe I used to use both arms to prop myself up for stuff. Now I can't. What's that going to look like? We might need equipment. And by equipment, I mean like maybe a wedge pillow or something. But like we might need stuff. We need to bring it with us. Wedge pillows, lubrication, that sort of thing. We need to plan for that. Maybe there's something to buy. If this conversation is feeling challenging, allow it to be funny. Like, it's fine if it's funny, but it still happens. You can ask each other questions. That sounds so silly, but like people often don't. Are you interested in touch or cuddling? Especially if it's been kind of a while. Like, hey, I've noticed we haven't held hands in a while. Like, I've noticed that we don't really touch each other very much anymore. Is that something you're interested in? You can talk about what would make it good for one another. Especially for the person who's had a stroke or brain injury, this is a conversation, right? Like, well, what happens if you touch me here at my collarbone? Ooh, that doesn't feel good. Sensation's different here at my, what would happen if you touched here at my, oh, actually, that's okay. Huh. I've had clients that in the sex education world, there's something called body mapping. Where like literally you spend time, okay, does strong pressure in this area? Because often strong pressure is better than light pressure, like light touch, those feather light, like a spider. Ugh. Often more pressure is actually better than less pressure for folks who have had a stroke. Not for everyone, but for many. Like, does this amount of pressure feel good? Does like rubbing your arm as I have my arm around you, does that feel good or does that feel awful? What about just putting my arm there? Is that okay? Does that feel bad? What if we do the other way? Does that feel okay? What does good feel like right now? Spending some time actually experimenting and figuring that out. What needs to happen before intimacy or our date night to make it so that we're both comfortable and present? For a lot of people, like, do the dishes need to be done? Because otherwise, I'm going to be just thinking about how the dishes are piled up and how, like, my sister keeps calling me and all of these other distractions. What do we need to do so that we're both present and calm and not totally stressed out so that we can take a moment away together? And then let's plan to do those things. Okay, we're going to have a date night, but first we're going to do the dishes. And maybe we're going to, if I worked with a couple who, like, their children were older, but had, and like, they had adult children, is how humans talk about that. They had adult children, but those adult children lived nearby, and they were often coming to check in, and like they just felt like they needed to be present for their adult children all the time, and so they felt more comfortable when they communicated, "Hey, Friday night, 5 to 8 p.m., we're not going to be reachable, and it's not because the house is on fire. It's just because we're going to have a date night. So if you can't get a hold of us from 5 to 8 p.m., don't worry. House is not on fire. We're having date night." If it's hard to start physical intimacy by talking, consider other things. You can pre-plan your gestures, right? This is part of that whole, like, talking about things in advance, but you can come up with codes, code gestures, code words, code, like, things that we do, like ringing a bell, or like if I go over to the bedroom and I'm like this, we both know what that means. Okay, yeah, kids do not want to know that you are having sex is in the chat. No, they do not. Nobody wants to know that their parents are having sex. But having a date night is different. Maybe you're watching a movie. You go do whatever it is that you're going to do. And like, not everybody has that same experience where they need to let their kids know that they're not dead if they don't answer the phone. Some people, that is their relationship with their adult children. Okay, yeah, using communication devices or pre-written phrases. I have helped people like program in their communication device. These are things that I want to say in bed. And some of those things are sexy things, and some of those things are like, I need a break and let's switch position, or like my arm hurts. Like both of these things. And practicing what you want to say. So we know that it can be helpful. The things that we say often become easier for us to say. Often the things that we might say intimately are not things that we're practicing with other people outside of the bedroom. Where can we find the space to actually do some of this practicing if we want? Oh, huh. Yeah. And okay, look, I'm a speech therapist. If you're working with a speech therapist, or if you want to work with a speech therapist, like, this is the sort of thing that we should be able to help you practice, problem solve, and work forwards. Because helping you communicate is our job. I am not going to sit here and tell you that that's not awkward, right? Like, I recognize that talking to any professional about your intimate life is weird for a lot of people. And it is our job. So one of my big things is talking to other speech therapists and other medical professionals and being like, you need to bring this up. Speech therapist, you need to bring this up, because you can't ask somebody else. You can't ask the person with aphasia to bring this up. They have aphasia. You need to do your job. But not everybody does because everybody feels a little weird. I just want to like put the permission out there that this is our job. It is our job to help you communicate about anything that you want to communicate about. And so if your speech therapist, if you were working with one, has not addressed these things with you, it is not a creepy thing to do to bring it up. I just understand that it is also hard. I think it's unfair for the speech therapist to ask you to bring it up yourself, but it is hard. We have a chat that says, my wife said the bell isn't going to work for her. I mean, admittedly, there is kind of like a service please aspect of the bell. So maybe not the bell. Okay, I think, here, let me count slides. 1, 2, and then the end. Okay. To move forwards, it can be helpful to acknowledge that things have changed. Aphasia changes the way we connect. It's just not the end of the story. And many, many couples face similar changes, and they feel the same feelings of like awkwardness or loss. And it's important to know that we can still grow together, that this doesn't have to be how it is forever if we're dissatisfied with how it is right now. Not everybody is, but if you're dissatisfied with how it is right now, increased connection, increased closeness are possible, and it's just something that we have to work on. Not to get back to how things were necessarily, but to move forwards together as a team. And to answer the question in the chat, yes, this is being recorded, so you can watch it later. All right, the last slide, like actual slide that we have. It's great to ask for help. And many, many couples face similar challenges and benefit from connecting with each other. Again, aphasia groups, stroke support groups, couples and individual counseling can be really helpful. And the medical community should be able to talk about intimacy and sexuality. We just often don't bring it up. It's true of speech therapists, but it's true of everyone. It's okay to bring it up with your medical professionals if they have not brought it up with you. If you are noticing that like the medication you're on seems to be having some side effects related to sexuality, you can talk to your doctor about that. It's just really hard, right? Like it's weird. It's hard, but also it's their job to be able to talk about that and see if there's maybe a way around it. And they might not know that this is a thing for you unless you tell them. And they may not bring it up because even though it's the job, everybody's weird about sex. So actually talking with whoever it is that's on your medical team can be helpful. Okay. Oh, and the link for where things are at justaskri.org has been posted in the chat. And also, this is my email address. You're welcome to contact me if you have questions or things that you need. I can try to help. I don't know if there's anything that I can offer. Our website's spiceinstitute.org. But that's my email. I'm going to pause in case anybody is writing it down, although it is on the thing. And I can also put it in the chat for people who are here live. Actually, I'll do that right now.
Well, thank you very much, Laura. This was very educational and really enjoyed your presentation. And this will be recorded and you will be able to review it again, which I think a lot of us might want to go back and look at it again. Again, I want to thank you all for attending our 8th annual conference, session 2. I am going to turn this over to Kate so she can wrap up and let us know what we're doing next week. And another thank you to our sponsors.
Thanks, Denise, and thank you, everyone. Laura, that was so wonderful. I know all of us took away so much from this content and from the shared discussion. Thanks, everybody, for participating and sharing your thoughts. Um, we especially want to, again, thank the Rhode Island, our sponsors for this entire conference throughout the month of June, the Rhode Island Department of Health. Thank you to Health Concepts Limited. And also a big thank you to Home Health and Hospice Care of Nursing Placement. They are our sponsors this year for the conference. And we have had some killer topics so far. Last week's and this week's were spectacular. Thank you again, Laura. If you guys are ready to keep and continue the good discussions, next week we are going to have a panel on Saturday, June 20th, discussing community access and public accommodations. It's going to be a mixture of professionals and a brain injury survivor and advocate. And hopefully the tips and tricks and resources and wealth of knowledge will keep coming. So join us for that next week. I'm going to put the certificate of completion into the chat. And I want to just thank everybody again for joining us. Oh, and an extra special thank you to Dina from the Rhode Island Wave, who is our kind of tech guru and facilitator who makes this happen and produces the recordings for us as well. Thank you, Dina.